Welcome, Lund loyalists, YouTubers watching on John Lund Unleashed and the Bay Area Sports Collective, those watching on X and Instagram and listening on Apple and Spotify. It's John Lund Unleashed and JohnLundUnleashed.com. Brought to you by Riopel Cosmetic Surgery and Laser Center. Right now featuring amazing stem cell technology. For all your pain and for the guys, check out the latest in low T and testosterone therapy to make you feel like yourself again. Riopel Cosmetic Surgery and Laser Center at riopelcosmetic.com. Now, all juiced up and ready to go. Here's Johnny.
Good morning, and happy... Let me get this turned around here. Happy Wednesday. I hope everybody's doing great. Slight adjustment. I think I'm blowing everybody's ears out. What's happening? Episode 123, as you can see there, a lot on the board. That's probably the most busy show cover we've had. You see John Lynch, Purdy, talked to CMC yesterday. Fred Warner was out. You see Jimmy Butler in the bottom corner with Steph Curry. They got game 2 against Houston. They win this game tonight. Series over. NFL draft. Jordan Hicks struggled. You know my thoughts on Jordan Hicks, but I'll give them to you anyway. Once again, as the Giants get smoked by the Brewers. We get into that conversation as well. We talked about starting pitching. It had been absolutely great lately. And then Jordan Hicks. So you know my thoughts on him and Birdsong and where I've always thought Hicks should be. So we'll get more into that conversation as well. But good morning. Episode 123. There you see the chalkboard there. We'll go out and give roll call in a second. But if you're new here, thank you so much. However you are listening, I really appreciate it. If you might migrate over to our YouTube channel, that would be tremendous. You join us there. You know when things are going to be released. So what you do is you come over to YouTube. You go to John Lund Unleashed. You please subscribe there. Make sure your alerts are on because we put out stuff. Not only do we do the show Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., or somewhere therein, Pacific time, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. on Saturdays, and then as needed. For example, tonight we'll do a Warriors postgame show. Those are a lot of fun. So hopefully we can drink some beers, do some shots, and have a great time tonight if the Warriors win game 2, which for me would be the series is over. And I don't think I'm going out on too much of a limb with that. But we'll go through the chalkboard. If you're new, please make sure you subscribe on John Lund Unleashed on YouTube, and then you'll be in the know on everything, like when we release stuff as we did yesterday with CMC. Fred Warner went down to headquarters, spoke with John Lynch, and so I'll give you some insight into that and play some of those videos. Bay Area Sports Collective, that is something that we're ramping up and putting together, which is very cool on YouTube. So my show is there, John Lund Unleashed. Tom Tolbert Show, the Tom Tolbert Show. And by the way, Tommy's on twice today. So Tommy's going to he's in Houston. So he'll do a show at 1 o'clock previewing the NFL draft, which he absolutely loves. He does like 18 mocks per. No, he doesn't. And then he will do what he did last time, which was really cool. So I did a post-game show. And then Tommy, who, of course, is calling the game on the radio, Tommy will go over to his hotel room, grab a few Pliny's or something, and then he'll kind of just casually hang out in his hotel room and give you what he thinks of it. So make sure that you are subscribed to the Bay Area Sports Collective so you can get Tom's show as well. And then, of course, this afternoon, as always, Paulie's Particles, which with our good friend Creative Tony. So those guys will be on late this morning as well after I'm off the air. And then we have added Rod Brooks and Quality Hang. So a lot of XKNBR guys, and I hope that you enjoy all the shows, and we're adding more. I'm not at liberty to say nobody trusts me with anything anymore, and why should they? Because I'm a loudmouth, blabbermouth. So they don't tell me anything, but I do know some things that are coming down the pike, but I'm not going to tell you. But there's more stuff coming. So please make sure you go to the Bay Area Sports Collective on YouTube and join the channel there as well. It might be because Skills hit me up and goes, I couldn't find it. The Bay Area Sports Collective or Bay Area Sports Collective. You see that logo in my left corner, which is B, and then it's got the SC. That's what you're looking for there. That's Bay Area Sports Collective. So there's that. So make sure you join that channel. All right, do not go anywhere today because this is going to be a high-quality show as long as I don't screw it up. Episode 123, John Lynch speaks. He has perfected the art, as I wrote at johnlundunleashed.com, which I will show you. I did a recap on johnlundunleashed.com so you can see the videos and wrote a little blurb about each one. So make sure you go to johnlundunleashed.com for not only that, the blog, but also archives of shows, podcasts, all those different things. You can buy gear, social media things. All those things are at johnlundunleashed.com. So make sure you go there. And I've kind of given you a little bit of a blurb, but I said this in the blurb. I don't even know what a blurb is, but I did say that John Lynch has perfected the art of saying something while saying absolutely nothing, which Billy Bean was the best I ever saw at it. We had a Billy on a lot, especially when I was on 95.7 when they carried the A's, and you'd talk to Billy and you'd like, God, we just had 20 minutes. It was great with Billy. What do you say? Nothing. Bob Myers is great at it. Bob is much better now. He's on ESPN and can say a lot of things, but when he was the general manager of the Warriors, he didn't want to say a lot and he was on with those weekly, so he had to say something. And he would say something, and then at the end of it, you go, he just said nothing. But there's a skill to that. So we'll talk about that. The biggest things weren't about the draft because you don't want to tell your opponents what you're thinking. So when everybody reports all these things John Lynch said as fact, yeah, he said them, but I don't know that they're fact. It's lying season, as I always tell you. So I'll try to decipher some of those things for you of what he said yesterday. Biggest news is Purdy is there, which indicates good, I think. Kittle was not. I'm not worried. Trent Williams was there. I'll tell you why he was there in my estimation. So anyway, and then like I said, we talked to CMC and Fred Warner. I thought there's some really interesting things. The biggest that come out of it to me is Christian McCaffrey, unequivocally, at least in his mind, he's healthy. And there's no question about it for him. So he's excited about that, as is Fred Warner about rebuilding the defense. As you look at the chalkboard, Warriors game 2, we'll get into adjustments. I need to explain adjustments to people because everybody thinks that, they're going to overhaul the engine or something and Houston's going to be something that they're not. It's not how it works in the NBA, and I'll explain that as people talk about adjustments. You are, to just give you a little preview on that, you are what you are. So you can tweak some lineups, you can tweak some minutes, you might be able to make one or two small things, but the Rockets do what the Rockets do. The Warriors do what the Warriors do. You don't all of a sudden become the other team or become something that you're not. That's not what I mean by adjustments, and that's not what is talked about. So a lot of times when people say, well, they're going to do this and do that, at the core of things, you've done what you've done, and every sport is like this the entire season. You may tweak some small things. You may tweak some lineup things. You might, whatever the case may be, but you're not going to not be who you are at your core. And I think there's some confusion in that. So we'll get into that conversation as well. The Lakers tie up the Timberwolves. Jordan Hicks, as I said, was not good. I'm not taking any joy in this, as many people are hitting me up on social media going, you don't want Hicks to do well. Yes, I do. I want Jordan Hicks to be great, but he's not. And some of the things after the game that were said make me scratch my head that this is Little League. It's professional baseball, and some people need to be truthful and accountable. So we'll get into that too. Caboose Pistol, sweet, clean, family-friendly, and random things happen throughout the show. If you're new around here, the way that I equate it is we're driving, we're on a road trip, we get off, we have a rest stop, we hit McDonald's, I got to charge my car, all these different things. Then we get back on. Sometimes the stops are longer than others. We do the best we can, but you know me. I get thrown off by my ADD, and I do the best I can to keep on the chalkboard, to go down like that as we have it written, and I'll keep you up to date on everything, but we got to do random things throughout the show. That's just what makes the show a lot of times. And so there you go. And again, just to recap on that, there's a little Warner, little bit of McCaffrey on either side. John Lynch speaking. Brock Purdy, good news. Jimmy and Curry, NFL draft, Jordan Hicks, a lot to go over today. So glad you are here. Thank you. We will get to a ton of things momentarily, but we always do a chalkboard. So if you are watching on some other device or some other platform like X at John Lund Radio, excellent. That is tremendous. Thank you for doing that. If you are watching, for example, on Instagram, that is tremendous. Thank you so much for watching on Instagram today at John Lund Radio. Migrate over to the YouTube page. It's a lot of fun. We have a great community. LinkedIn, Facebook, all those places, and Twitch. Thank you very much. We like to expose ourselves, not in a weird way, but to as many people as we possibly can. Vernon, good morning to you. Catalina, it is great to see you. Barry, Dom is our good friend. Can't wait for the draft to be over. Good morning to everyone. Did I say Vernon and Baba Booey and Kid Icarus 5? Very good to see you, my friend. Joy is here, rocking a new era. Is there? Ayo! Who else do we have today? A lot of people in there today. Well, I'm sure want to know draft stuff. Jake is here. Taylor is here. Chris is here, our good friend. Folsom Steve, good morning. Hurley Bird, hello. To you, Pine. Hello, Pine Needle. It's great to see you. You're not late. I was late. James, good to see you. My friend Scott, good morning, my friend. Please do like. I appreciate you, Scott, for saying that. Please like, subscribe, do all those kind of things. Good morning to you. Aaron, hello to you. Good morning. I hope everybody's doing great. I love Hump Day, man. It's like, oh, yeah, it's rolling. Daniel, good morning, my friend. JJ Raider, what are they going to do at 6, JJ? Lots of different stuff, and we do have the latest. And I don't know that I mentioned that, but there's a lot of buzz going around. There's one mock draft that I'm paying special attention to this morning. This person only does one but he's got insight into the league, and there are a few things, and this is why I wait till the last minute. Today, I'll release a few picks of the Niners that I'm hearing some buzz about, so I'll do that at johnlundunleashed.com. And just one more thing before we get going, let me just show you johnlundunleashed.com and the latest that I have put together so that you can jump there at some point right here. Now, that's the front page, but if we go click on blog here, a bunch of stuff going on right here. Let's hopefully see that this is a high-quality website where I click on blog and it actually goes to blog, or it may not. Let's see, but you can see all the stuff that we got going there. There's the latest. There's the blog. So you see all the different stuff, but that's what I wrote yesterday, recapping 49ers day one, and you can see this whole thing, a little blurb about everything. There's John Lynch. I cut John Lynch into pieces, and so you can kind of see that. It's not just the whole thing. I put things that are relevant. Christian McCaffrey, we did the whole thing. That's about 6 minutes long, and the same. Fred Warner, it's about 6 minutes long as well. So you can check that out right now at John Lund Unleashed, or you can wait till after the show. It is certainly, and of course, up to you. All right, let's start with John Lynch. And like I said, the draft stuff he said, think about it like this. And it is a skill. I'm not kidding. It is a skill to say something but say nothing, because what you're doing is everybody's trying to get intel here. I'm not kidding when I say this, because I know it for a fact, because I've talked to people about it, and they have people who are assigned to watching other teams' press conferences, GM press conferences from other teams, to try to glean intel from what they're thinking. Certain guys may give you a hint, any kind of thing about what you're going to do at your pick, especially if you're picking at 11. Because like Dallas is picking at 12. Believe me, they're watching John Lynch's press conference. Everybody's trying to glean something from someone about who they're taking. Now, look, it looks like Tennessee at 1's taking Cam Ward. That's pretty much a lock. At 2, there's word that the Giants at 3 and the Browns at 2 are taking calls. They're not. That's just to manipulate teams and everything like that. Cleveland's going to take Travis Hunter. Giants are going to take Abdul Carter. That's going to open up something for Kayvon Thibodeau. As I said, maybe he gets traded. Maybe the Niners are in on that. Maybe they're not, but they could certainly use an edge, and you're not going to get 6 or 8 starters out of this draft. You're just not. It's not realistic. So I think the Niners are open to trading up, trading down. Again, John Lynch, we'll let you hear in a minute here. He thinks the depth of the draft is the strength, which tells you that they'd like to trade down, but I think a lot of teams would like to trade down. So there is an art to not saying anything but saying something. The reason why John Lynch and other GMs and decision makers have to talk before the draft is because you got to throw some fresh meat. We're just like, give us some NFL. And the NFL is so good at the offseason and staying relevant, more so than any other sport, and it's not even close. So they do these kind of things, and you go in there and you try to decipher anything from John Lynch, but there's just not a whole lot there. Other than, so I'll get to the draft in a second, but there are 2 relevant things, which to me are actually 3, that have to do with personnel more than they do the draft. And the first thing is, of course, Brock Purdy. So here is John Lynch talking about why Brock Purdy showed up when clearly he wants a new contract and doesn't have to be there. And to explain what these things are, this is not OTAs. They're not on the field. They're not doing any work on the field. This is basically hey, how's it going? Let's check in. How are the injuries, CMC? How's the ankle, Trent Williams? How's this? How's that? How's everybody doing? Let's make sure everything's cool. Right on. Good to see you. Shake hands, kiss babies. Okay, see you later. Then the rookies come in. They do a little rookie mini camp. Then after that, it's the first OTAs. And you really don't have to be worried about Brock Purdy not having a deal. The first deadline being like near end May when they start to get on the field for some real OTAs work. So right now it's just check in, shake hands. How's the injuries? How you feeling? Good. Glad you're alive. Cool. That's what this is. This is not any kind of work. This is no big deal if Brock had missed it, but he didn't. And so John Lynch was asked, what does that mean to him?
He's a pro. He's a very clear-minded and not going to let other people influence like what he should be doing. And that's one thing everybody I think respects about Brock. He's done a lot for this organization, and we're grateful for him. And looking forward to having him as a quarterback for a long time.
Would you say that you guys have made progress on the contract talks since the last time we talked to you at the owners meeting?
I think there's been some sudden talks that have this thing going in a good direction, and I'll leave it at that.
All right, so he just said, "I'll leave it at that." We've had some positive talks, and we'll leave it at that. And I believe that. But I'm gonna go into reporter mode here for a second, which is something I did for a long time. Brock Purdy's a nice guy. Brock Purdy loves football. Brock Purdy loves his teammates. Brock Purdy doesn't want to let down his teammates. He's got a ticking clock in his head, and he knows that he should be on a football field or with his teammates and all those kind of great things. Brock's a great guy. Nobody's denying that. But he has an agent. And although the agent works for him, Brock is going to follow what the agent says. His father's smart. His father played professional sports. They're going to do what the smart people say that they should do. They did it in Brock's surgery. They did great research when they had to repair his elbow after the Philly NFC Championship game. But as his father said, and we had him on the radio, they did their research and then they followed the lead of the people who really know what they're talking about. In other words, the old term of know what you don't know. Hire the right people, then know what you don't know and let them do their job. And that's what the Purdys are doing in this whole situation. So if they weren't close, and this is the reason I'm speculating about this, but it's a pretty educated guess here, is that they wouldn't have showed up or Brock wouldn't have showed up unless they were making positive progress. If this was a negative situation, if they hadn't been making any headway, if there were negative discussions and talks, his agent would have told Brock Purdy and his family, and they're in this together, you can't show up. You can't show up. Not because you're not going to do, not because of work on the field, which they're not doing anyway. And that's one of the reasons he did show up, because they're not doing work on the field. If they don't have a deal done, like I said, by late May, Brock will not be here. Because his agent will tell him, look, if you sprain your ankle, if you hurt you can get hurt at any time doing anything. So if you go on the field and you hurt yourself, you're going to cost yourself millions and millions and millions of dollars. So the reason it's not a surprise that Brock Purdy is here for these voluntary but not really voluntary situations with the 49ers right now is there's nothing to lose here. Unless they were having poor conversations and then he could send a message to them, or through his agent would really be sending the message that this is not acceptable and we need to accelerate this. And then John Lynch would be asked questions about it, and it pisses off the Niners, and it becomes a whole thing. And Brock didn't want that. I understand that. But the agent, although he works for Brock, he's going to follow what the agent says. So it does tell you that there are positive talks in my mind. But if they don't make real progress or get into the point of dotting I's and crossing T's, he will not be here at the mid and end part of May when they actually get on the field for the first OTAs. You sprain an ankle, you hurt a shoulder, you hurt an elbow, you just lost yourself millions, and he's just not going to do it. So it's not a surprise, because Brock does love football, does love his teammates, does not want to let down his teammates. All those different things are true. The main reason is he's just checking in. There's nothing on the field that is going to get done. He's not going to get injured unless he slips in the shower or something, but he could slip on in the shower in Arizona or in Santa Clara. So there's no real downside to him coming here, but it does, I think, show a positive sign that they are making progress, and that's the way that John Lynch took it. Now, George Kittle, on the other hand, and I'll get to some draft stuff in a second, but these are the biggest things that came out of yesterday, so I'm trying to cut through the clutter for you. The other thing is George Kittle. He was pretty short and to the point on Kittle. I'm not worried. So let me play this. Actually, let me explain the situation, Joe. George Kittle's cap number, and you know all this because we talked about it a lot. A bunch of dummy numbers and dummy money and all this kind of stuff to make the agent and the player feel good. But the reality is, in football, you got to look at what's guaranteed and all these different things. And then you got to look at when the contract really jumps and escalates, and that's really the end of the contract. So, for example, George Kittle had a $12 million cap number last year that jumps to 22 this year. They're not going to have him play on that. Fred Warner, which I'm going to play a little bit later, has a cap number that jumps from 12.6 last year to 29 million this year, and then 27.6 in the last year of his deal. He's not playing on those deals. Brandon Ayuk has as I tell you a million times, it was a 4-year 120. Everybody celebrated. How could you give Brandon Ayuk $30 million? Well, it's not that. It's 3 and 76, and he has in his 4th year of his deal, it jumps to $42 million. He's not playing on that. So the deal's got to be redone by his 3rd year. So that's all you got to do. The spot rack or above the cap or over the cap, whatever. All these sites have it right there. Nobody's has a revelation. Like there's certain guys who cover the team. They're like, oh my God, look at, he's so smart. It's like, all you got to do is go to a website and look. It's not very difficult. So anyway, George Kittle's deal's got to get redone because he's not going to play on a $22 million cap. He's not going to, for this team right now, given their situation and how many guys they've already let go and all those kind of things, they're not going to have George Kittle's cap number jump $10 million when they can reduce it, extend him. He's going into the last year of his deal. That deal is going to get done. Now, George isn't here. I'll explain that in a second, but here is John Lynch yesterday asked about what's going on with George Kittle, who was one of the few guys who weren't there yesterday.
These things are voluntary right now, but, again, with that, we've had good communication, good talks, and we'll see where that goes.
All right, George Kittle, you know this, a number of years ago built that big barn in Nashville, and he's got a full football field and workout facilities and all that kind of stuff, and he prefers to stay home, and he's earned it. He's 30, 31 years old. He always comes in shape. He's got a great attitude. There's certain guys that you want to see, and I told you, this is just a gathering to see how everybody's doing. And Christian McCaffrey, if he hadn't come off the injuries of last year, he wouldn't be here. They wanted to check on Christian McCaffrey just to make sure everything's okay. I'll play a couple of cuts from Christian. He has deemed himself 100% healthy with no restriction whatsoever, but I'll let you hear it from his mouth in just a second. But he does the same thing. He trains on his own. He is in amazing shape. He knows what it takes. He told me that yesterday when I asked him a question about it. He knows, and he wouldn't normally be there, but he's coming off injuries, and the 49ers wanted to check on him. Same thing with Trent Williams. Trent Williams owns a gym in Oklahoma. He doesn't come here in the offseason. He doesn't even hardly participate in training camp and hardly any practices during the season. But he had a lot of ankle issues last year, and the Niners wanted to check on him. So there's Trent Williams. So Brock Purdy's coming because they're not on field, and he's not going to get hurt. Trent Williams is there because they're checking on an ankle, and Christian McCaffrey's there because they're checking on the Achilles and other things that bothered him last year. That's why those guys are here. George Kittle has earned the benefit of the doubt, just like Williams or McCaffrey, who wouldn't be here except for they have injuries. Kittle's not fighting any kind of injury, and it's not because he doesn't have a contract. It's just because he doesn't normally come to these first events that are just check-ins. I'm sure they did a Zoom with him. How you feeling? I'm good, man. You working out? Yep. Cool. We'll see you, we'll see you in May. Now, if he's not here in May, is that a big deal? A little bit. And then you get into some of the OTAs, but he's different than Brock Purdy. George Kittle's going to be ready. George Kittle knows what it takes. George Kittle plays a pedal to the metal 100% all the time. You don't really want him in a lot of these things. I don't want him getting hurt or pulling something or because he only has one speed, pedal to the metal. So if George Kittle is here for some of these things, he can get himself hurt just because that's how he is. So he's a different situation. And guys who have earned it, they can be on their own because they can be trusted. Young players, hell with that. I need to see your face. There's certain guys where it's like, I need to see your face, all right? I don't need to see Nick Bosa's face. I know what he's doing. I know what kind of shape he's in. He's down in Florida. He's working with his brother. They're good. There's certain guys like that. There's other guys, I want to see your face. I want to see how you're doing. You haven't earned the benefit of the doubt. Fred Warner was there because Fred in the offseason is one of the few Niners who actually lives in town. And so he's there all the time. He said that he was talking to draft prospects and hanging out. And I asked him, I said, can you get a feel for draft prospects? Like, because what's funny is I'm sure they're in their best behavior and they're in a suit and all that kind of stuff. And they're talking to the powers that be in the front office guys. And then they get around the boys like Fred Warner and they might lift a little bit or something and be like, what's up, bro? Like just kind of lighten up a little bit. And then I was wondering if, maybe Fred had kind of sensed that, but he said he only said hello to guys. Enrique says Alden Smith. Exactly. You need to see Alden Smith. Like, Alden, you're coming in. I don't care, dude. You have not earned any benefit of the doubt. So you understand what I'm saying. All right. So there you go. So, okay, there's a couple of things. So that's the veteran side of things. All right. So then you get to a couple of things that John Lynch said. And to me, this is the most relevant thing that John Lynch said. So he was asked about this was interesting, the transfer portals and everything. And Lynch said that, in the past, if a guy had transferred schools, you're like, what's wrong with that dude? Now they're saying, okay, if you haven't transferred, what's wrong with you, dude? Like, didn't you want to go from James Madison to Alabama if you could? Didn't you, didn't you want another situation? Didn't you? Because they actually like the fact now that guys are moving to other teams because they look at them in different schemes, or can you adjust quickly, or can you, you learned a new playbook and all these different things. So they actually look at it as a positive, whereas before it was like, why'd you transfer, dude? What's wrong with you? Like, why'd you do that? Now it's totally different that way because of the pandemic too. There's older players, all this different stuff. So he talked about that, and I thought that was relevant. He did talk about their process, which he actually had two answers on their process. One of the things that I found to be most interesting about the Niners process that he talked about was that scouts will jump on it, and he calls it table talk. And scouts will jump up on a table and pound the thing, literally jump up on a table and talk about their favorite guys, regardless of position, regardless of round. They each pick a couple of 2-3 guys, and they will pound the table for their guy. this is my guy. We got to draft. And it's really cool. And he says that the process where they've gotten themselves in trouble in the past is when it wasn't a consensus, when somebody took over. Gee, I wonder who could have done that. When it wasn't a consensus, he said that's when they've had their trouble. He says they have honed the process down to where it's really consensus based and that everybody's got to kind of be on board with the guy. But it's got to be tough because let's say that your position's coming up and the Bears are at 10 and you've decided, I'm just saying for the sake of conversation, because I think Mason Graham is falling. Okay, we want Mason Graham. And Chicago's not going to take Mason Graham, but all of a sudden a team that wants to jump ahead of the Niners who knows they need defensive line help jumps at him at 10, grabs him at the last second. Now you're on the clock. Now what the hell do you do? We thought we were going to get that guy. We had consensus on that guy. Now all of a sudden we have, 10 minutes to say, damn, our first round pick at 11, what do we do? And they have a board and they have a chart and they have backup plans and they have all sorts of things. And believe me, even though this is one question I should have asked him yesterday was they've been doing their mock simulations forever. This team, that. And now we're starting to see, and I'll play some of this for you a little bit later, but now we're starting to see some intel. This is the fun part, the day before the draft. Insiders, guys like Peter Schrager, and to an extent, Schefter, and guys like this, they have relationships around the league. And what they do is that you start seeing guys in certain positions that you hadn't seen them before. And you're going, why is that? Because they're understanding that there's certain guys, and this is a lot through agents too. Like, hey, this guy's sliding. Just letting you know, this guy's sliding. Hey, this guy's rising. And I'll give you a couple of those guys. When Peter Schrager did a mock draft, and there's two real interesting picks. One is the 49ers and one is another one that are showing guys that could be sliding and moving up. And I'm just telling you that this is what's fun about the day before the draft, because you start to get intel from teams, actually from agents, because teams are like, but from agents who are hearing certain guys that are sliding and moving, and that's because they're the agent of certain players that are moving and sliding. So anyway, that's that. But here is John Lynch. This is one of the more interesting things. He's asked about how he would define this draft in 2025.
I think the hallmark of this draft, I was talking with some of our guys before I came down, I like the depth of this draft. I like that there's a lot of quality starters throughout this draft, and I think it runs deep into day 2 and even into day 3. I think with our process and knowing what we like and knowing that really well, who we are and who we want to be, I think there's a lot of starters in this draft. You could argue that maybe the high end in the front isn't as deep as it might have been in other years, but I think the quality depth that runs deep into this draft is a strength of this draft, and that's exciting for where we're at.
All right, so let me get into lying season a little bit. I don't think the 49ers are going to trade up. John Lynch says there are 20 players that they have given first-round grades to. He said in 2024, there were 23. One of the big differences in this draft is what drives a draft is quarterbacks. So if you have elite high-end quarterbacks, people will do crazy things for them, like the 49ers did in 2021. That's not this draft. Even though those guys turned out to be bombs, a lot of them. Trevor Lawrence went first. Zach Wilson went second. Trey Lance went third. Justin Fields in the draft. Mac Jones in that draft. All these guys, and they're driving the draft because teams will move around for those players. This draft doesn't possess that. Now, there are unique players. I could see a team coming up who really likes Tyler Warren. I could see somebody coming up who, if Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, starts to slide, but there is not a quarterback driving teams to come up. So Cam Ward, who I still think is overrated, is going to be the number 1 pick. And I keep saying this, at Washington State, I never heard that he was going to be the number 1 pick of the draft. I thought people were saying he's going to be a 4th rounder. But all of a sudden he goes to Miami and he's the number 1 pick in the draft. Okay, whatever. That's fine. Shedeur Sanders, who a lot of people had going 2nd to Cleveland or 3rd to the Giants. All of a sudden now the process, some people have him fallen all the way to 21 to Pittsburgh. Now, if Pittsburgh sees him around 17 or 18, I think Pittsburgh could move up for him, but I don't see a major jump for a quarterback. New Orleans maybe at 9 for him is the earliest, it sounds like, and 21 to the Steelers latest. Maybe somebody's going to surprise us. Maybe somebody's going to come up. Maybe somebody really likes him. It only takes one. But it doesn't seem like the quarterbacks are going to drive this first round, which is why John Lynch is saying there is not that high-end elite talent. It seems like, and I'm not going to put Cam Ward in this because I don't think he's that. The elite talent is Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. That seems to be the consensus as the best 2 players. And maybe Ashton Genty. I mean, he doesn't have the positional value at running back that you would have, But really, in some way, shape, or form, however people have it ranked, they have it as Hunter, Carter, Genty. As far as just overall talent, regardless of position, those three guys really are seen as guys who can be franchise changers. After that, okay, Cam Ward, because of positional value, is going to get taken first overall. I think that's a mistake by Tennessee, but okay, they're going to do that, it sounds like. And then it's beauty is in the eye of the beholder, starting really at the fourth player. So Membu possibly to the Patriots. Jacksonville could be a wild card. They could go Jalen Carter. They could go Mason Graham. They could go Ashton Genty. A lot of people think the Raiders are always a wild card. They got a new GM coming over from Tampa with Pete Carroll. We all think, okay, what is Pete Carroll like? Well, he likes offensive and defensive linemen. He wants to run the football. Maybe that could be the case. Then the Jets get on the clock at 7. Tyler Warren's name has been thrown around. An offensive lineman has been thrown around there. At 8, Carolina, they need everything, especially defensively. Jalen Walker has been the guy. I love him for the Niners if he would somehow slip to 11, but he'll probably be gone. 9 is New Orleans. There's been a lot of talk of Sanders there with Carr's injury, but maybe that's not the direction they go. 10 is the Bears. I could see that as a trade spot ahead of the Niners, and that's why John Lynch has to be really careful. He doesn't want to tip his hand at all, even though it's pretty easy to look at the Niners and say if there's an offensive lineman there, if there's a defensive tackle there, if there's an elite edge guy there, like you could see a few different positions, and that's where I think what's interesting about this thing is if Tyler Warren is still on the board at 10, maybe the Bears do take him for their quarterback, Caleb Williams. They could use one. Or maybe there's a team like Indianapolis who wants a tight end, or the Chargers who want a tight end. I don't see the Chargers being that aggressive, but from 22, I think is where they are. So that there could be somebody, or if there was an offensive lineman, let's say Will Campbell for some weird reason, or Membu, one of those two guys slides, or even Calvin Banks, who I don't like, the offensive tackle / guard from Texas. Maybe somebody wants to get ahead of the Niners to get him. So then you might see 2 or 3 moves. Don't get me wrong. There could be some trade-ups for just a couple of spots to get ahead of a certain team. That's how it works too. This is the intrigue of the draft, is that, well, there's not the high-end talent, as John Lynch just said. A team might know what another team is looking at. All you have to do is look at their roster and say, well, they need a lot of different positions. Let's try to get ahead of those guys. So you might see a 2 or 3, team move up, things like that, to get ahead of a certain team because you think they're going to take a certain player. So you might see those things, but you're not going to see that high-end 10-place jump, I don't think, in this draft. So John Lynch saying that the strength of this draft is depth. What does that mean for the 49ers? Well, it means if he's telling the truth and it's lying season, but if he's telling the truth, what that means is he would rather move down. And that's been reported, but a lot of teams want to move down. But like I said, Indianapolis at 14 maybe, if Tyler Warren's still on the board at 11, the Penn State tight end, and all of a sudden the Niners are like, yeah, we'll flip 3 spots. What's that? Maybe Colston Loveland, again, if Tyler Warren is gone, the Colts who need a tight end panic, and they say, well, Loveland's the next best tight end, and after that, there's a pretty big drop-off. So we want to go get Loveland. We'll go up to the Niners at number 11. We'll take that guy. They move back to 14. And Lynch said that he was asked in the draft too, have you kind of honed in on a guy? And he's like, well, there's like 3 or 4 guys. Again, if he's telling the truth and he gets to 11 and he likes 3 or 4 guys, and he's like, well, if I move back to 14, that's 3 spots. And if I like 4 guys, then one of my guys is going to be there and I can pick up a 3rd-round pick for a team that needs a lot of things. Yeah, I'll do that. So that's possible. I don't think they're moving 11 to 21 because Pittsburgh needs a quarterback and Pittsburgh panics and says, oh, we're going to go get Shedeur Sanders. We're going to move 10 spots. Niners going to move back 10 spots. Now, if the Niners move back 10 spots to Pittsburgh's 21, you're getting a 2nd-round pick. You might be getting a 4th-round pick. Now, again, if you feel like the depth of the draft, and here's the problem, though. John Lynch just said he thinks there's 20 first-round grades. You can move back to 21 and not get one of those guys, especially in a position of need. So this is the intrigue of the draft to me. There's a lot of stuff, and people think it's dorky and all this kind of stuff. It's a multi-billion-dollar business by itself, the draft, with all the mocks and the Mel Kipers and the McShays and all the things that people talk about and the amount of clicks that all these things get. So I think it's intriguing in that sense. But I think John Lynch did a really good job to just kind of reiterate them and make it CMC and Fred Warner and all these other things that I think are actually more relevant than what John Lynch said yesterday. John Lynch did a great job of saying something but saying nothing. He talked about the depth of the draft. I think that's a pretty generic thing. He talked about their process, which I think was pretty generic. Every team that I've ever talked to has scouts, whether they literally get on the table like the Niners, they do get the stage and they do get the mic and they do say, I really like this guy and all that kind of stuff. So that's not all that unique. There really wasn't anything, he talked about, he told a great story, but again, this is something where he said something but said nothing. He's a Hall of Fame safety. He was a 3rd round pick out of Stanford. He talks about their defensive coordinator at the time when he was drafted. His name was Floyd Peters. And he said nothing he could do. His first few seasons, he didn't start, and there was nothing he could do to start. And he didn't understand why. And years later, Floyd Peters said, I didn't want to draft you. There was another safety that I wanted, and I didn't want you. And so I didn't play you. And I don't know that still goes on to that extent in the league, because you're kind of cutting off your nose despite your face kind of a thing. And so finally he got on the field and all those kind of things, but Peters didn't want to play him. So he just was like, what is going on? And he'd be like, guys would make a mistake. He wouldn't really rip them that much. And all of a sudden, he's getting ripped constantly. And years later, Peters said, I didn't want to draft you. I wasn't a fan of yours. And so I didn't put you on the field, which is kind of stupid, to be honest with you. And it still probably happens to a certain extent, but probably not to that level, because you got who you got, and you got to get on board with guys, and you got to play to their strengths and all those kind of things. So that was a cool story, but it didn't tell anybody. It didn't give any intel to what the 49ers want to do. He just said that was him talking about everybody's got to be on board. Now, not everybody's going to be. It's just human nature. But he said that they want to have continuity and belief for everybody in who they pick. And that was the story, and that's the story that went along with it. But it wasn't the intel. And so he's up there for about, Corey Rush is up there. He's the PR guy, media guy for the Niners, and he's kind of got a stopwatch. And John's got to get through like 20 minutes without trying to say anything but saying something. Like, throw us a piece of meat, man. We're like, NFL. So you got to give us something here, but he doesn't want to give any intel away, if that makes any sense. And that's what yesterday was all about. So any intrigue? Yeah, about Brock Purdy and George Kittle and about Trent Williams and having guys there. But in terms of draft-wise, I don't think he told us anything. All right, now here is some intrigue. This is huge to me. Here's Christian McCaffrey yesterday declaring himself 100% healthy with no restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, it's been such a smooth process, a lot of hard work. As soon as that injury happened in Buffalo, that was my goal, was to not miss a day of OTAs, be back ready to go with nothing hindering me, and that's where I'm at.
About when did your knee feel normal?
It went by pretty quickly. I don't remember the exact date, but I got to a point pretty early in the offseason where I was training full speed, ready to go.
All right, so there he is. He was asked a little bit later too about just let us know, reiterate this. You have no restriction. He said absolutely not. So his knee, as he just pointed out there, was feeling better. The Achilles, all those different things. He declared himself 100% healthy. Now, whether he declares himself healthy, whether the Niners declare himself healthy, might be two different things, but it's certainly encouraging what he said. And just to go along with that, one of the moves, Dre Greenlaw, obviously you would have liked to have back. I really wasn't overly concerned about any other loss that they had, to be completely honest with you. But the Jordan Mason one made me scratch my head, because I don't think Isaac Guerendo is quite ready. And McCaffrey was asked about Guerendo and said nice things about him, but he was a receiver in college, didn't run the ball a ton at Louisville or Wisconsin. And I love his speed and his size, and the 92-yard run against Seattle, and he was smart enough to go down in that game, and all these different things that he's done are very encouraging, but he still hasn't quite figured out the wave and the flow of the zone scheme. So I think they need a backup. Now, the fact that Christian McCaffrey is 100% healthy might have, and probably did, factor in them trading Mason to Minnesota. I know he wanted to be traded, but that doesn't mean you're getting traded. I would have kept him. He was leading the league in rushing, and he only got a 2-year, $7 million deal in Minnesota, which wasn't worth very much. And McCaffrey coming off an injury, and running backs generally in the system of Kyle Shanahan, they get hurt because it's one cut and get up the field. When you're not dancing, you're not doing this, you're going to take on the defender, and sometimes that'll get you hurt. Christian McCaffrey says he's 100% healthy. The Niners trade Jordan Mason. It adds up. So that's good news. The 49ers will score points. George Kittle's going to be in the fold. I think they're going to fix the offensive line. Brandon Ayuk will be back at some point. Pearsall was a first-round pick for a reason. Juwan Jennings is good. Brock Purdy's going to have a better season. All these different things lead to the Niners will have a top 5 scoring offense in the league. Everything is defense to me, which we'll get into with Fred Warner in just a second. But it's not like these guys are deaf. They know what's going on. They pay attention to social media. They're told by friends and family, all these different things. You guys are being counted out. They know. It's not like they live in a bubble. What's going on? People are counting us out. So Christian McCaffrey was asked about kind of being the underdog for once when they're usually kind of Super Bowl favorites. Here's what McCaffrey said.
I mean, I like that mentality that we have, and I kind of like the narrative going around because, those are the kind of stuff where you can prove them right or prove them wrong. And I think we got a committed team and a team that's ready to gel together and realize that it's going to take all of us. And that's how it should be showing up, and so I'm excited about that.
Is there like more mentally and emotionally refreshed this offseason as opposed to since last year went so late and the Super Bowl loss, and now it's a different approach?
Yeah. Yes.
Couple more?
Do you feel that way personally? Like you come off an injury and people say, as you get older as a running back, does that get into your mind that you're like, okay, I'll prove them again?
Really for me, it's about just proving myself right. I've been here before. I've been counted out a lot of times in my life. And so it's, when I start to focus on just outside voices, I lose control of my own life. And so I know what to do. I know what it takes. I know how I'm supposed to feel in order to be, the best me I can be. And just happy I feel like that right now.
All right, so there is Chris McCaffrey, who later told me that was the greatest question he's ever been asked in his entire life. No, he really didn't say that. But you can just tell they've kind of got a chip on their shoulder. I don't think I have the cut where Fred Warner says that, but Fred said the same thing, and it's kind of refreshing and different. Fred was a great interview. He lives in the area. He just can't wait to get going. He talked to Christian McCaffrey, of course, was asked questions about being a father, which his wife's his supermodel wife is pregnant. Fred was asked about, do you give me any advice? So there were some lighthearted moments in that whole thing, but both guys did talk about, we lost a lot of guys, and you look at McCaffrey, they didn't lose a ton of guys offensively. It was mostly on the defensive side. So here's Fred Warner yesterday, as those were the two guys that they gave us today. Here's Fred Warner talking about losing guys defensively, especially losing Dre Greenlaw.
Season's been great. A little too long for my liking, but it's been good. Just trying to get better every day. Spending a lot of time with my family. A lot's happened, obviously, with the team, but just looking forward to having everybody back and building this thing up from ground zero. We got a long road ahead of us.
How challenging is it? I know you weren't really excited to see one of your closer teammates go. How challenging was it seeing, the off-season free agency?
Yeah, no, I think every year it's really tough because, even though you get into a season and the team might seem like, this is the same team as always. Every year you have guys who leave, and it is a new team every year. But obviously this year we did lose some guys, especially Dre, like you mentioned. That was a tough one for me. But I mean, I'm so excited for him and his new journey over in Denver, and everything that he's going to do there. I think he's just getting started, right? And so that leaves spots available for other guys to come in and compete for those jobs, right? And that's just the NFL. That's how it goes. So I'm excited all the way around.
Did Salah have a address for?
By the way, that was one thing too, and I probably should have put one of those cuts up there, but Robert Saleh, he's very excited to have Robert Saleh back. And one thing I asked Fred Warner about that I thought was interesting was because Fred, during the conversation, said that, Robert Saleh learned a lot while he was in New York. He's not the same guy. It is still all gas, no brakes, and certain things like that don't die. But he said that the defense will evolve, that Robert Saleh is bringing some new things to the table. I asked him what kind of things specifically, and of course they don't want to give those kind of things away. So he said, well, we'll just have to see, but it's not going to be the same old. But we do forget, I think, as excited as we all got for Robert Saleh to come back. Now, Robert Saleh was the author of some bad defenses early with the 49ers when they didn't have the talent. I tell you this all the time. I've never, ever, ever met a coach that was great with no talent. Just doesn't happen. I don't care who you are. Phil Jackson always had Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. He was smart in the teams that he chose. Bill Belichick is considered to be the greatest coach of all time. We'll see Bill Walsh aside, but when he lost Tom Brady in talent, all of a sudden he was a shitty coach. Well, he wasn't a shitty coach. He had shitty talent. So I don't care who you are. It's great to have a great coach. If you don't have the talent, you're not going to be very good. And so they need to revamp this defense, but Fred Warner's not a bad place to start. Nick Bosa's there, but they got to go big time, both through, and I believe this is going to happen, both through veteran trades during the draft and the draft itself. It is not realistic, I'll say it again, to get 6 or 8 starters out of this draft. It's just not going to happen. Now, the 2024 guys, that was a nice draft. They're going to all have to take a step up. Bernardo Green, Malik Mustafa, guys like that are absolutely going to have to take a step forward. If they don't get a suitable linebacker next to Fred, then a guy like Dee Winters is going to have to step up. It's not realistic to think they're going to get everything. They got to get some defensive linemen. They got to get another edge rusher. There's just a lot they have to do defensively, and it's not realistic. That's where don't be surprised. As I said, if a Kayvon Thibodeau, he was going to go on the block the minute they take Abdul Carter, and the Giants are going to think to themselves, what can we get for Thibodeau? And we want a draft pick right now. Not next year. We want one right now. So would the Niners give something like that up to get a free look at him, and then he'd be up for an extension? I understand that, but that might be something across from Nick Bosa coached by Chris Kuceric that they'd be – when you're talking about a guy who was a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Guy's incredibly talented. He had 11.5 sacks a year ago. This last year, he wasn't very good. He's had attitude problems, but when he's on, he can set an edge, which is important to the 49ers, and he can rush the passer. And he's been productive. He was a game wrecker at Oregon. I mean, from his freshman year on. So this guy's got a ton of talent. I'm just saying, guys like that, now you're redundant if you're the Giants and you want to get another pick. Let's say, the Giants, as I said, I don't know that they're not going to pick Shedeur Sanders. I don't think at 3. But if they take Carter, they're going to want another pick in the early mid rounds to take a quarterback. And there's a ton of them, whether it's, Howard or the kid out of Notre Dame, Riley Leonard, or whether it's, McCord, the kid out of Syracuse. There's a bunch of mid-round guys that people like, Quinn Ewers, who I'm not a fan of, but, that type of a quarterback that after Ward, after Sanders, maybe after Jackson Dart, you've got this group of quarterbacks. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and maybe the Giants want to get into the third round, back into like another third-round pick to take one of those quarterbacks, and they use Thibodeau to do that. If I was the Niners, I'd be in line. So they've got to do both. They've got to draft really well, but they've got to get some young veterans who they know, okay, and I talk about this all the time, guys who are in the bank and guys who are what-ifs. Rookies are what-ifs. Rookies are lottery tickets. That's what they are. And so you can pick them wherever, and some of them are going to come through, like Fred Warner, one of the best third-round picks in history. I mean, not only is he a great player, you can just tell he's a culture setter, and that's what you need in your building, and they need more of those guys. Well, if there's some young veterans who other teams aren't quite sure about, or now because of the draft are redundant, as would be in Thibodeau's case, then you can go get one of those guys, and you can probably get him for a low cost. Now, I know he needs an extension after this year, but we'll see. But if I'm the Niners, you prove it to me. You get me double-digit sacks opposite Nick Bosa. We'll find a way to keep you long-term, but show us what you got. Because you know what the best player is in any sport? The guy in the last year of his deal. So get a couple of those guys who haven't proven it yet and to say, look, you're a young veteran. Because like I said, getting 11 lottery tickets, which right now they have 11 picks, that's all well and good. Half those guys aren't going to hit. So now you're down to like 5 or 6 guys. You better get a couple of guys that can play. And that's where I think some of these young veterans, where we forget about this is another way to pipeline your team. Somebody drafts somebody that makes a player expendable. I just drafted somebody at that position who obviously is cheaper. We want to get rid of the veteran who's making some money, or we want to get the guy who hasn't quite lived up to the potential. All right, we'll take that guy and take a risk on him. Maybe he fits our system better. So expect the 49ers to do some moving and shaking, not only in terms of the draft, but somebody drafts somebody, that means they just took somebody's position, and maybe that guy can help you. So that's something to watch for in this whole thing. I think the Niners are going to do some of that during the draft. Speaking of, this is Fred Warner, and he talks about his deal. Everybody's talking Brock. I get it. Everybody's talking Kittle. I get it. But Fred Warner, as I point out at johnlundunleashed.com, Fred Warner's deal goes from $12.6 million on the cap to $29 million next year. You're not paying Fred Warner on the cap next year. That doesn't work. And then 26.7 in 2026. That's got to be restructured. Here's Fred talking about it.
By the end of the summer, and is this something you want done before week 1?
I mean, it seems like they're releasing plenty of funds as it is already. Like I'm not. I get paid plenty already. But listen, that whole part of it, I know they, on my agent and the team and all that, that'll all handle itself out. I'm just obviously ready to just go to work and be the best version of myself.
To be here through.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Go ahead, Brandon.
All right, so that's that's a good thing, because right now, as you look at the cap, that's on there. They're going to restructure Fred Warner. They're going to extend George Kittle. They're going to pay and extend Brock Purdy. Those things are going to happen. So in a lot of ways, in Kittle's case and in Warner's case, that's actually going to decrease numbers. Obviously, in Brock's case, think about this. He's going to get the biggest raise in the history of the NFL. And I don't care if it's 45, 50, 55, 60. Doesn't matter. He made less than $1 million last year on the field. He made a lot of money off the field. But on the field, Brock Purdy made less than $1 million. There were guys in college football who made more than that. There were quarterbacks who were making $2, $3, $4 million. The kid that just went from Tennessee to UCLA who wanted $3 or $4 million, and everyone's going, he hardly got anything at UCLA. He got $1.8 million to play quarterback at UCLA next year. That's more than Brock Purdy got paid, almost twice as much as Brock Purdy got paid. So he's getting the biggest raise in the history of the game. And regardless, it's not going to hit the cap right away, but it is in the first year going to go from like 1 to 20, something like that. So he's going to get paid. It's going to happen, but they're going to reduce guys like Warner and Kittle, not because they're getting less money, but because they're going to play that chess game with finances. So those are really the things we learned yesterday. We took about 50 minutes to do it, but I think it's well worth it. Let me give you a couple of things that are not directly related. Well, they are related to the 49ers, but let me explain something real quick. And I think this is interesting. So this is why I wait until the Wednesday before to finally do some draft stuff, because what starts to happen is you start to get intel. And it's not so much, as I said, from the teams. John Lynch says something, says nothing, but says something. Every GM is trying to do that. And so it's not really coming from the organization. And if it does, if the organization gets leaks during the draft, those people get fired. There's certain times during the year where leak this, leak that, whatever. But this is driven by agents. So what starts to happen is it's not necessarily their own players. If you ever watched, there's a couple of movies on the draft. The Costner one was terrible. The Rod Tidwell one was, but that one kind of shows a little bit, even though it's fictitious, where you just don't know a lot of times that Warren Sapp is going to drop or Tunsil the day of, or there's certain guy like, how the hell is that guy dropping to that point? Even Mac Jones, who a lot of people thought was going to go in the top few, all of a sudden the Patriots sat there and got him at 15. I know he didn't turn out to be great, and he's the backup with the Niners now, but there's always going to be those guys that are going to slip, and you're going to hear certain names of guys starting to come up. Well, that's starting to happen now, and Peter Schrager, who, look, the other like a week ago, and then he hit me back on this on a message. I wasn't pissed at Peter Schrager. I simply was saying that ESPN already had him making dumb lists and all that kind of stuff. He was taking a thing on Stephen A's list and everything, and I'm like, please don't make this dude do this. And I know that they did a lot of that stuff on Good Morning Football, but it was more fun stuff, and I just don't want him to turn into something on ESPN and do the car wash every day, because this is what the guy is good at. He's really good with relationships. You can just tell he's got that kind of personality. He's really good with relationships. And so what you start to see, because he only does one mock draft, he's explaining in each pick what he's hearing. So, for example, I'll give you this. So he has Walter Nolan mocked to the 49ers at 11. And he says the following: I'd be shocked if Nolan fell out of the top 15 at this point. He might be the fastest riser in the draft. Quick, people mover, blah, blah, blah. Nolan is the Rebels' best prospect I hear more about. Don't be shocked if he goes before Mason Graham, the more heralded defensive tackle, blah, 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 blah. We know about the defensive line. So in the way that is written, you can just tell that he's got insight into Walter Nolan. So I've seen Walter Nolan as high as 8 to the Panthers, as low as 43 to the Niners in their second round pick. But now we're starting to get close to this process. And what he's hearing from agents is this guy's moving. And I believe it. This is lying season. I understand that. The organizations don't want leaks. The organizations aren't going to say anything. But you start to hear from the Schefters and the Schragers and the people in the know that there are certain guys that are moving and shaking, moving back, moving forward. And so Walter Nolan, he says, is a mover. Now, the thing about Nolan that's interesting to me that I would hesitate to put him to the 49ers is he's got some character issues. He has some motor issues. He doesn't always play hard. He's hot and cold. Now, somebody would say Chris Kosarek will light a fire under his ass and he'll be really, really good. Okay, maybe. But as you saw from Fred Warner there, character guy. Saw from Christian McCaffrey there, character guy. Brock Purdy, character guy. Trent Williams, character guy. Nick Bosa, character guy. They draft certain guys, and it's not above talent, but they I'm not going to say they're risk adverse, but they take a lot into the character and the type of player that's a 49er. So maybe they're desperate enough, and Walter Nolan is that talented that they would take a chance on him. But here's something else here. And I told you this a couple of days ago with no insight. I just know the way things work and the way that teams think, especially in the first round. The reason why teams fail in the first round to me, and as I tell you this all the time, it's 50-50 in the first round and goes down from there as far as second contracts are concerned. And that's how I consider a first rounder either successful or not. Do you get a second contract with your original team? Mike McGlinchey was not a bad 49er. Didn't get a second contract with the 49ers. That's a failed pick. That's just how I look at it. Bottom line. So as I look at it, as I look at the first round, I say to myself, all right, what are teams going to fall in love with? They fall in love with athleticism in the first round. They can tell their owner, hey, man, he was 6'5", 260 and around a 4'5". He had everything. It's not my fault. It's his fault. It didn't work out. They defend themselves on those kind of things. That's why Brock Purdy goes in the 7th round. That's why Tom Brady goes in the 6th round. They don't have the physical attributes. And so teams hesitate, especially early in the draft, and they'd rather take an upside guy in the first round. And then in the second round, and I don't know why the mindset changes, but go look. 2nd, 3rd round, you see all those big names you knew that were really productive in college that didn't necessarily have all the measurables, and all of a sudden we are shocked that they turn out. They play football. It's not all about the combine numbers and what you look like in shorts and all those kind of things and how fast you run. It's about actually playing the game of football. And then for some reason, the mentality a lot of times switches in the second round, and then you get football players. First round, you get lots of misses because a guy just jumps out of the gym and you get too excited, and it's like the sexy blonde model versus the, it's Marianne Ginger. I'd rather take Marianne than Ginger. I mean, that's just how it is. I need to update that reference because a lot of people are like, what are you talking about, Gilligan's Island? But that's kind of what happens is these scouts, and as many times as they know, and John Lynch knows, and they've gone through all these drafts, they still get enamored with the stopwatch and the height, weight, speed, and all these kind of things, and you get misses in the first round because of that. So with that said, Walter Nolan is the perfect example of that. And then a guy like Mason Graham. And I told you a couple of days ago, I thought he was going to slide. And the reason why is because he's not sexy. He doesn't jump out of the gym. He's not running the fastest. He's not lifting the most. He's a plugger. And many people think he's kind of is what he is, which isn't a bad thing. He's a really good football player. I just think a lot of times we have too long to evaluate this stuff. And then all of a sudden, Mason Graham, who a lot of times in this process has been a top 5 pick, we have too much time to think about it. And all of a sudden, he slips to 13. I think if he's there at 11 and I'm the 49ers, because this is a culture-setting guy. He's a hard-working guy. He's a lunch pail guy. And maybe people don't like to hear that, but he's going to be a 10-year defensive tackle, and he's going to be solid and stop the run and give you 6 or 7 sacks, and he's just going to be really, really good. But some people in the first round are just like, that's not sexy enough, and I got to go take a chance on Walter Nolan. That's how you miss. Nolan might be great. He might be great, but he's a risk, and he has higher upside probably than Mason Graham. But if Graham is there at 11, and again, this is Schrager's draft, and I said this before talking to anybody or anything, I know guys like Mason Graham, and I'm going, he's going to slide. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but Peter Schrager has him now going 13 to the Dolphins. And remember, Micah Parsons went 12, and Warren Sapp went 12, and there's all these guys right in this range. There's always a guy that slides. Kyle Hamilton went 14, the safety for the Ravens, after going through the process. A lot of people had him top 5. Like, they just overthink this thing. And it says right here, Graham has been viewed as a likely top 5 pick the past few months. Still could go there if he falls to 13. Nice win, blah, blah, blah. Getting a day 1 culture changer and a can't miss prospect. Then how does he fall to 13? Because people overthink it. And let's be honest. He's a white guy. He's a plugger. He's just that's the typical thing. He's just not athletic enough, man. Second round, he'd be the first pick of the second round because people are like, he's really productive. But they overthink the first round, and they want athleticism, and they want jump out of the gym, and they want sexy. Just take the guy. Like, if I'm the Niners at 11, I'm not taking Walter Nolan over Mason Graham in no way, shape, or form. He's a culture guy. He's a tough guy. He's a badass. When Trent Williams retires, Mason Graham can take the boombox. That's the guy that you want to intimidate the other team. He's like 6'4", 315. You can't move him out of the middle. He's not going to get you 12 sacks. He's not going to be sexy like Aaron Donald. But you know what? When it's 3rd and 1 and he burrows under the offensive line and makes the stop, grabs an ankle, you're going to be happy he's on your team. That's the kind of guy he is. And so, I would be a bit surprised if he was there at 11, but if he was there at 11, that's the type of guy, I think. Let's say that just for the sake of conversation, Peter Schrager's right. And he's not writing that because he's not hearing it. He's writing it because he is hearing it. And let's say that there's somebody at, the Bears are on the clock at 10 and Mason Graham's on the board. That's the type of guy who's sliding, and a team at, whatever, Miami at 13, as he just goes to 10, trades with the Bears, gets Mason Graham ahead of the Niners. That's when a guy starts to slide. You're like, are you serious? And there's going to be somebody who is. They'll talk about it in the first round of the draft. This guy can't believe this guy's sliding. Can't believe this guy's sliding. And maybe it's going to be him. Because if Schrager's writing it, he's got insight. Not to necessarily teams at this point, because like I said, nobody's taking calls at this point. They look at their call screener. I'm a GM. And they see it's Peter Schrager or Adam Schefter or something. I'm not answering that damn call. I already did my dog and pony show. I threw meat to the hungry, to the hungry reporters. I'm not going to talk to them again. I'm not telling Adam Schefter what I'm doing. Are you insane? I'm not taking that call. So this is coming from agents. And I'm not saying that they're foolproof, but they're hearing things. This guy's moving, that guy's moving. There's a reason Schrager wrote Nolan to the Niners and Mason Graham to the Dolphins. But I know the Niners, and if Mason Graham is sitting there at 11, which I don't think he will be, I think somebody would trade ahead. If he's sitting there, the Niners know. And that's a John Lynch pick. And that's a Shanahan pick. And that's a smart pick. And that's a culture pick. And you're trying to reinvigorate and reinvent your defense. That's a Saleh pick. Think about Robert Saleh. Do you think Saleh is about flash or substance? He's about substance. So I didn't mean to go on that long of a discussion about that, but I saw that mock from Schrager. Look it up today. And he talks a lot in each one of his picks about his insight onto certain players. And that's what I'm talking about a Wednesday mock, is you start seeing that. I don't know that Kuiper has that. Certain guys do, certain guys don't, but Schrager's is one to watch. I'm just saying. All right, we spent an hour on the draft, but we should have yesterday. So episode 123, thanks for joining us. John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. Please make sure you're subscribed and have those alerts on. We will do a post-game show tonight for the Warriors, by the way. They take on the Rockets in Game 2, which we'll get into in a minute. Bay Area Sports Collective. Do remember, not only my show right now is over there, but Tom Tolbert's going to be on twice today. Once this afternoon, talking some NFL draft. Then tonight, right after the game, as he was. So I'm going to do a post-game show tonight right here. Exclusively, by the way, if you're watching on X or Instagram at John Lund Radio or any other platform, we're going to be exclusive to YouTube tonight on the post-game show. So you got to come over here to YouTube, John Lund Unleashed and the Bay Area Sports Collective, either or on YouTube. So that's going to be exclusive. We're not going to stream that on X or any other platform. So you got to come over to YouTube, John Lund Unleashed. Please subscribe. If you have your alerts on too, you'll know exactly when we jump on, which will be just minutes after the final whistle after Game 2 in Houston. So I'll do my post-game, and then Tolbert's going to do one from his hotel room. So he'll call the game. Then he'll, take his time, whatever, probably talk to his old teammate, Steve Kerr, have a beer or two, then go to his hotel room, have a beer or two, and tell you about what he thought of game number 2. So be on, make sure that you subscribe to Bay Area Sports Collective, and you will be able to see both of those shows. So episode 123, John Lynch talks, Purdy and Kittle updates, something but nothing. I told you, depth of the draft is the thing that he likes. Trades, I expect them to make trades, not necessarily up but down, and not only for draft picks but players, because you're not going to get all these starters out of the draft. It's just not realistic. CMC healthy. That might have been the biggest thing of everything that came out yesterday. He has deemed himself healthy. Fred Warner excited to reinvent this defense with Robert Saleh. So if you have any questions about the draft or about NFL or anything like that, let's hit those before we get into game 2 with the Warriors. Somebody said, yeah, you hit it right on the head right here, Pine. Ginger date, Marianne, you marry. That's all I'm saying. Is that's great to flirt with the Michael Williams of the draft and everything like that. I can't take a chance. They've got to hit these picks, especially in the first round. And they hit Brandon Ayuk, that got a second contract. They hit on Bosa, which was rather obvious, but they haven't been good in the first round outside of those guys. And we'll see on Pearsall. You've got to hit on this draft. They can't take a wild swing. They just can't. They've got to hit a double. If a double or a triple is Mason Graham. Nolan might be a total flame out. He might be a strikeout. He might be a home run, but I don't know that they can take that chance, especially on this draft. I think they got to take solid players. I'm just saying. Could be wrong. Absolutely, I could be wrong. Somebody said Shamar Stewart. I'm sorry that I didn't see who it was, but I was looking at as I was in the middle of my tangent. Somebody mentioned Shamar Stewart. He's a really nice. So that's what I think John Lynch was talking about. He's an amazing edge prospect. Potential, that dirty word that I don't like, that everybody uses, and they use it as a positive when it's actually a negative, which means you haven't reached your potential yet. He's 6'5", 270. He's out of Texas A&M. He had 3 sacks the last 3 seasons, but he did have 33 hurries. And so what many people think is Chris Kasarik, their fiery defensive line coach, can get the best out of him. Maybe he can. Maybe he's going to be Myles Garrett. I saw a side-by-side that, the length of the arms and the 40 speed. And I think he ran a 4.59 at 270. That's wonderful. But so many teams have been fooled by guys who do well at the combine. Realize at the combine that when these guys train in San Diego or Phoenix or Florida, wherever they do right after the season, so they've been doing this stuff for like 6-8 months, that they have the answers to the test. the 40, the jumps, the verticals, the shuttle run, the bench press. Like, that's all they've been doing day after day after day. That doesn't mean you're a great football player. It means you had the answers to the test and you aced it at the combine. And that's what happened with Stewart. And now everybody's salivating because of the measurables. And that's where you make a mistake. Look, the guy might get 12 sacks. He might be Aaron Donald. He might be whatever. He might be the next Bosa. I don't know. But I don't know that the Niners can risk it. That's all I'm saying is, in this draft, you got to look at a couple of different things. A, how risk adverse are you? Because with the Niners, I think they need solid players that they think are going to be big time contributors. Now, everybody thinks that way, but certain teams, if I'm Jacksonville, I can probably be more of a chance taker. If I'm Tennessee, I can be more of a chance taker. Like, I can, and you got to mix your draft. Solid guy and guys that are going to be a little bit more of a chance taker. You got to decide what culture you want. Who fits your team? Who do you want to be? Are you a physical smash mouth team? Are you going to out athlete? Like, what are you going to do? Who are you? That's why mock drafts fail a lot of times, is they look at certain positions. Like I'll give you a great example. Now, maybe I'm wrong in this, but James Pierce is an edge guy from Tennessee, a really good edge rusher. But for the 49ers, he would be nothing more. He's Leonard Floyd. He'd be nothing more than a third down guy. He's 6'4", 245. He can't set an edge. He's not big. He's thin. And I just don't see the 49ers going for a guy like that. He doesn't really make sense for them. Where I've seen a guy like Jared Ivey's a 6'6", 285 guy at Ole Miss. Now, he's not going to be your speed edge guy, but he can certainly set an edge. And if he got you 8 or 10 sacks and setting an edge, and I'm not saying he's a first rounder, he's like a third or a fourth rounder. I love that guy. That could be a 49er guy, but he's also made for like a 3-4 that Pittsburgh runs, because he can be an edge setter. And what those guys are is they tie up offensive linemen and the linebackers make the plays in a 3-4. The edge guys come off and they're a little bit smaller, like 6'3", 250. Well, the Niners aren't going to take really an edge guy they want him to be bigger. So anyway, I don't need to get more deep into that, because I will get to the words in just a second, but I just want to make sure that there are no questions in regards to draft. I know I went an hour and went dorky on that, but I did spend most of my day down there yesterday. So I wanted to get you some information from all of that. Why are we talking about Wonder Woman? What's happening? I just saw Morgan Fairchild. Why are we talking? What's going on? I'm totally missing all this stuff. Let's see. CMC healthy is lies, I tell you. Could be. I stood right next to him and he convinced me, but I could be wrong. Like I said, him saying it and the 49ers saying it are two different things, but them trading Jordan Mason also is a sign that they think he's healthy too. We shall see. Very nice. Little Barbara Eden. Very nice. I Dream of Jeannie, if I'm not mistaken, right? Let's see. What else do we have here? I just want the draft to be over with. Look, it's fun. And I agree with you 100%. I'm ready, because I've seen 98 mock drafts. And I'm like, okay, can we go now? I am excited about it. I do like it, but just saying. Here we go. I needed to know this. Don't worry, Lund. We're discussing sexy women from 60s and 70s TV. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Has anybody mentioned Suzanne Summers, who was the Thigh Master Queen? Very underrated, I believe. Three's Company, and then just she's passed away now, I think cancer, right? But she got more attractive as she got older. Unbelievable that way. Okay. There's my contribution to the chat. All right, let's get to the Warriors game number 2. And I do have a bunch of good stuff. Did I play all the video, by the way, from the Niners? Lynch on Purdy, Lynch on Kittle, define the draft, CMC underdog, CMC health, Warner's deal, and he's ready to go. Yeah, we're done as far as that stuff is concerned. Let me make sure that I showed you everything from, we're good on that regard. Okay, I'm good. Okay, we're good on the draft. All right, let's flip it to the Warriors and game 2. Let me explain adjustments for a second. As you're on the chalkboard, it says Warriors game 2 near the bottom, and then it says adjustments after that. So having covered the league for a long time, covered the Jazz and Bulls series, covered championships in Detroit, things like that, I'm fairly well versed in playoff series and the way that they worked. And Phil Jackson, and like I said, I covered the Bulls side of things, and Steve Kerr is a disciple of Phil Jackson. And so there's a few things that when you get in the playoffs, and this is why I think veteran teams over young teams a lot of times, until the young team proves it, and Oklahoma City may. But let me stick with this series for just a second. People look at adjustments and they think that a team is going to do all these crazy ass things to get themselves back in the series. Here's the deal. Houston struggles in the half court. They like to get out and run. You're not going to get as much of that in the playoffs. Houston is a great offensive rebounding team. They get easy baskets that way. They get second opportunities. That's not going to change. The Warriors aren't really good at they don't have a ton of size, and they're going to struggle with teams who offensive rebound like the Rockets. That's not going to change in this series. Now, what can you do to adjust to that, for example? Well, Kevon Looney can give you some more minutes, but as I've said, Kevon Looney is limited on the offensive end. And if you're going to play Draymond Green major minutes, and you are, and if you're going to play Jimmy Butler major minutes, and you are, and I'll play something from Steve Kerr yesterday that I thought was interesting in regards to minutes in this series and minutes in the playoffs for his players, older players, but those guys are going to play. So Looney's not an outside shooter. So now you got 3 guys who can't shoot, or at least consistently enough, or be respected enough. That's a problem. So Looney, can he play very much over post? We'll see. It depends on how bad it is on the offensive rebounding side. That's one thing to look at it. Everybody wants to bring in Kuminga. There's no fit there unless there's an injury. There's a lack of energy, or there's foul trouble. So that's the only way he's going to play. Is that an adjustment? I don't know. As far as Houston is concerned, one of the adjustments I think, and this is, again, these are minor things. You play the way you play. The Warriors are the Warriors. The Rockets are the Rockets. They can adjust. They're just not going to be somebody else, something they're not. I think that people have this illusion in their mind that a team is going to be something they're not. You have core beliefs, principles, and you've taught this ever since training camp. This is what we are. This is who we are. This is what we do. So those things aren't going to change. Now, one of the things Houston, I think, is going to do tonight is Jalen Green, for example, some of these young players. Jalen Green, they need to get off and get going early. Now, I know Fred VanVleet was 2 of 13 from 3 and 4 of 19 from the field. Fred VanVleet is a champion at the Warriors' expense. He's been through the playoffs. They don't have to worry about him. They don't have to run something early for Fred VanVleet to have him have one go down, and he's got confidence all of a sudden. He's got confidence. Jalen Green, on the other hand, has never been in the playoffs outside of a failed game 1 in which he scored 7 points and was largely ineffective. And so Jalen Green's thinking to himself, okay, I gotta do this. Now, maybe he's going to try to do too much because he's a young player who's in the same draft as Jonathan Kuminga, who's the 2nd overall pick. Guy is supremely talented, was their leading scorer at over 21 points per game. Incredible athlete. So Houston probably worked on some things to get him going early. Michael Jordan used to do it. Kobe Bryant used to do it. The greats are smart, and what they do is, at the expense of their own scoring, because they know they can score at any point, they try to get others going and confidence early. That's what Jordan would do. That's what Kobe would do. That's what great players do. That I can do mine anytime I want. LeBron James would do it. I got it. Let me give you some love early. And now, if you're not getting it done, I'm going to take the reins back, and it's going to be about me, and I'll get going, and I'll carry us. But I'm going to give you an opportunity. So watch Houston tonight trying to get Jalen Green confidence early in this game. Fred VanVleet's not going to go 2 for 13, 4 of 19, but that doesn't need to be emphasized for them. And then as far as Şengün is concerned, if you're the Warriors, this is as they did, and I think the same strategy is going to be with game 1. They can't really stop him anyway. Draymond Green is a candidate to be Defensive Player of the Year, but there are certain matchups where I don't care how good you are. The great offensive players in the NBA cannot be stopped. I don't care who you put on them. Anthony Edwards and Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and those greats, they're going to beat you. Just the way it is. Şengün is too good of a matchup for the Rockets against the Warriors, against Draymond Green. And I'll get to minutes in a minute, why this rest is so important, because Draymond Green's playing on a 5 minutes, and that's just going to tire him out. So I think it's not that they're going to let Şengün get his. It's just they're not going to change their defense because of it. So they're not going to double him because he's a great passer in addition to that. And then what that does is Şengün getting his, okay, to a certain extent. You don't want him getting like 50 and carrying his team, but he, last time out, what did he get, 26? They'll let him get 26 to 30. What they don't want is, let's double Şengün, and then all of a sudden VanVleet's got a wide open shot, and he's hitting his first 3 or 4, and now he's rolling. Or they're doubling him, and then there's Jalen Green cutting back door to the basket, gets a dunk, gets excited, now he's on a run. So Şengün knows that he can get his at any point. And now by doubling him, he kicks out to a wide open VanVleet who gains confidence. He kicks out to a wide open Jalen Green who gets confidence. You don't want that. Hey, Şengün, we're going one-on-one with our Defensive Player of the Year. If you get 26 and you work for it, I'm not going to say fine, great, but that's how it is. They don't want others getting going. So as far as an adjustment goes, unless he's going for 40 or 50 or just carrying the Rockets on their back, they're not going to make an adjustment on him. He's going to get what he's going to get. What they don't want is other guys going off because they know Şengün can get his anytime. The Warriors know it and the Rockets know it. So the Rockets will try to do is, okay, let's see if he can get others involved. He's their pivot guy. That's where the offense runs through. So he can kick it out. Guys get confidence. The Warriors do not want that. I'm not leaving Fred VanVleet. I'm not leaving Jalen Green. And I've told you this time and time again, when it comes to matchups in the NBA, the Warriors have plenty on the perimeter to defend. So they're not going to have those guys. Now, they might dig down. Let's say that the Houston doesn't have proper floor spacing, and there's Moses Moody right down low. He's going to reach in and try to, grab and get the ball from Şengün. It's not they're going to give it to him in an easy fashion. They're not. But they're not going to sacrifice keeping these other guys in check just so that they can try to keep Şengün in check. It's not going to work that way. It's going to be, hey, Draymond, this is your guy for the series. Good, bad, or indifferent. Now, do we have to bring in Looney sometimes? Sure. Rebounding if he's killing us on the offensive glass, which he does. And remember, that's still a thing. Amen Thompson during the season averaged almost 4 offensive rebounds. Jabari Smith's a good rebounder. Steven Adams crushed the Warriors. They might run that big lineup out there again with Adams and Jabari Smith and Şengün. They might do that kind of a thing. The Warriors aren't going to adjust to that. They're not going to bring in a big fat lineup themselves. They'll just endure it. And if it doesn't get too bad, they'll just say, okay, that's fine. So that's kind of what I see tonight. The Warriors, when you win, you don't have to make major adjustments. I mean, you got to be smarter. You got to do smarter things. There's certain points, when you get that big lead, when Curry hit that 3 and it was 64-41, don't start turning the ball over. Don't be the Globetrotters. Don't get stupid. Don't get lazy. The Rockets got back in that game with a 17-3 run to end the third quarter. Don't do that. That's self-inflicted. Don't do self-inflicted things. The only thing that will beat the Warriors in this series are the Warriors. The Rockets can't. The Rockets are not going to take 4 of 6 from the Warriors, to me, unless the Warriors give it to them. Turnovers, stupid fouls, those kind of things. Just getting crushed on the boards. Those are things that the Warriors can prevent to an extent, especially the turnovers and dumb fouls. And if they do those things and beat themselves, that's the only way the Rockets are winning the series, to me. Now, here's something really interesting, and I talked about this in the postgame show after Game 1, is minutes. And the major reason why I think the Warriors are going to win this series, they win the play-in game on a Tuesday, they don't play till Sunday. They win the game Sunday, they don't play till tonight, Wednesday. Major advantage for the old team. It's major advantage. And that's the first round. They elongate the first round. So here's Steve Kerr talking about minutes distribution, especially for Jimmy Butler.
Made a mistake, honestly. We were rolling in that third quarter, and I kept Jimmy out there because we were rolling, and I thought I played him too much in the second half. So I definitely need to look at the rotations and make sure that we're getting guys the rest they need, making sure we're bringing in fresh bodies, like you're saying, and be able to really play with a lot of intensity.
What minute total do you
Well, I think Jimmy's fine playing 40, 42 minutes. Like he's different. There's a handful of guys in this league who can play 42 minutes and not really affect them. So I think Jimmy's fine playing 40, 42 minutes.
But Steph at 40.
Let me respectfully disagree with Steve Kerr a little bit. Jimmy Butler played 40 minutes. He just said Jimmy Butler could play 40 to 42 minutes, but at the same time, he said Jimmy Butler played too many minutes. I don't want Jimmy Butler off the floor. And Jimmy Butler and Steph can't be off the floor at the same time. You have to have one general on the floor. It's just the way it is. Draymond Green, no offense. It's just he doesn't give the kind of juice, especially offensively, and make the defense make the adjustments that either Butler or Curry does. I'm playing Butler 40 to 42 minutes. He's a freak. He doesn't, as Steve said, he doesn't need time off the court. Steph Curry, and I'm saying this because of the time between games, Steph Curry can play 40 in this series too. Now, what this tells you also, if you read between the lines, is Steve Kerr's thinking about long-term. Steve Kerr's not thinking about the Rockets, because if he's just thinking about the Rockets and thought he might get beat, he's playing these guys, an ungodly amount of minutes because he doesn't think he's getting by this series. He's thinking about later. He doesn't want to gas these guys because he's going to play Minnesota or the Lakers. He thinks he's going to go to the NBA Finals. Like that's what Steve Kerr's mentality is that I got to save these guys for later. So to me, Butler can play 40 to 42. Steph can play 38. They're not going to play Steph 40, but they can play him 38. There's enough time between games. The guy he's really got to watch that he didn't mention there is Draymond Green. Draymond Green is playing the 5. The axis of the Houston offense, as I said, is Şengün, and he's overmatched physically, size-wise in this series, and Şengün's going to go right at Draymond Green. They're going to try to get Draymond Green in foul trouble. That's part of it. He believes that he is bigger and stronger than he is. He believes that he can get offensive rebounds. He believes that they believe they can bully Draymond Green inside. And Draymond Green did an okay job, but he didn't get into foul trouble. He didn't lose his head. I think that's a win for Draymond Green. So it's going to be tough for him because if you're thinking about a long run and you're the Warriors, he's playing the 5. And I played this for you a couple of days ago. Steve Kerr said, when Draymond's tired, it's apparent. And we got to watch that. So I'm not worried about Jimmy Butler's 40 or 42. I'm not worried about Steph's 38. I'm not worried about anybody else. I'm the big worry, and where I would watch minutes is Draymond Green, and I would try to get him a blow anytime I can. Not only anytime Şengün's out of the game, but just anytime I can get him a few extra minutes on the bench, I'm going to do it. So that would be my adjustment from a rotation standpoint is I got to make sure that Draymond Green can be as fresh as he can as long as he can. Because he's given me things on both ends of the floor, but he's got to go one-on-one against Şengün. He's got to be the defender. He's got to be the rebounder. He's got to give us something offensively. I don't mean from a scoring standpoint, moving the ball, point forward kind of things. There's a lot on his plate that people don't realize, but he's got to play the 5 and he's got to play Şengün a lot. That's his main role in this series. Things change series to series, but that's his role. And he's going to get grinded down because of it. And so if he's thinking long-term for Butler and Curry, the real guy that he's got to think long-term is Green. Because if it's Draymond Green and he's going to play Şengün in this series, and then it's Minnesota or LA, and Minnesota especially has size, so he's going to have to worry about that. And I'm not talking about Gobert. I'm talking about he's probably going to have to take on like a Julius Randle in the next round. Now, Randle isn't Şengün. I understand that. But then if, it's Oklahoma City after that, they've got a lot of good size. So he's playing the 5. There's a lot of size. Jokic potentially. I think Clippers are going to win that series, but then you're looking at Zubats. You're looking at every team just about in the Western Conference has size. So if you're thinking long-term, and Steve Kerr obviously was thinking long-term, and he says, I got to watch it on Jimmy, I got to watch it on Steph. He's not talking about this series. They just went Tuesday to Sunday to Wednesday. And then they got a couple of days after that. And they don't play back-to-backs in the playoffs. They're going to get plenty of rest. It's not about that. He's thinking long-term. But the guy to watch for is Draymond Green because he's going to get grinded down to a pulp playing the 5. So that's Warriors game 2. That's adjustments. Lakers, as I said, beat the Timberwolves as you look at the chalkboard there. It wasn't overly impressive. Luka almost had a triple-double. He was great in the first half. The Wolves are not going to go away easily. I think this is going to be a 7-game series. Did not surprise me that the Lakers on their home floor with the type of veterans they have, Luka being in the finals last year, LeBron's won it, we know. I didn't think that they were going to go down at home 0-2 to the Timberwolves. They won 94-85. It wasn't overly impressive. Again, a low-scoring game. You're not in the playoffs going to get up and down the floor and run, and we're not going to see 110 to 112 to 109 and all that kind of stuff. It was a 94-85 old-school Spurs-type David Robinson, Tim Duncan. Well, that would be like 78-75, but still, these aren't going to be high-scoring games, and you got to win in the half court, and Luka can do that. Still, as I look at both of those teams, I see Luka offensively standing around a lot when LeBron has the ball and vice versa. LeBron has the ball, Luka's standing around. They're not exactly perfect, are the Lakers. So I do think if proper rest is given and nobody gets hurt, I think the Warriors can beat either of these teams. Now, things are going to evolve in this, and maybe the Lakers get better. I think the Timberwolves are still going to win the series. I think the Clippers are going to win the Nuggets series, and the Clippers and Nuggets. Kawhi Leonard he's so amazing. He doesn't play all season. We didn't talk about this yesterday. He doesn't play all season. I don't know another player. Maybe Steph could do it. Maybe a handful of guys could do it, but he basically doesn't play all season. Then he drops 39 in game 2 and they beat the Nuggets. Like the dude he's a robot. He's unbelievable. For him to just be like, okay, let's pick it up now. Late in the season, he plays, gets into the playoffs, hardly misses shots. He's just a robot. Scored 39. I think the Clippers are just too deep. I think the Clippers will win that series. So Clippers, I think, will win. T-Wolves, I think, will win. By the way, Warriors have according to Vegas, a 75.3% chance to win this series. I still don't think it's going to be easy. I wouldn't be surprised at all the Rockets win this series or win this game because, as I said yesterday, if the Warriors win this series is over. You go up 2-0, beat Houston on their home court twice. Now, they may lose one here at Chase. The Rockets did beat the Warriors 106-96 on April 6th, so it has happened this month. But still, 3-1 going back to Houston is what I would envision that situation being, and they'd have control of the series. I don't see Houston. Houston can't win this series if they don't win tonight. That's what it comes down to. So there you go. That's the Warriors side of things. Give me your thoughts on anything as far as the NBA playoffs or the Warriors if you want to get into that. Let's see. Yeah, I did see that, by the way. Celtics don't have – that's okay. They're going to try to get him healthy. They'll be fine. Yeah, he's amazing. I mean, he's just like, okay, it's the playoffs. I'll play. He is ridiculous. He is ridiculous. I would agree with you, Patrick. There's something missing. And it would not surprise me, especially if they get knocked out in the first round by Minnesota. I've said this the whole time. They're not moving Luka. They just got a gift from the basketball gods and the Mavericks. He's not going anywhere. Long term, if you trade LeBron this offseason because you have two ball dominant guys, if you trade LeBron, you can get back some young players that actually are around the age of Luka, and then you're good for 8 or 10 years. That's why I hated the trade from a Warriors perspective. Is they just extended the Lakers window. They just got a superstar, a guy who can carry your franchise both on and off the court. One of those few guys. You just got one of those guys, and he's 25, 26 years old. Just like, oh my God. The Lakers do this all the time. So now you've got a guy that's just, it's going to carry your franchise for many, 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 many years. And to me, they lose in the first round. There's not a lot of chemistry amongst those guys, and it's really hard. It's not like when Durant came around and then everybody said about the Warriors, oh, there's only one basketball. Well, Durant's not ball dominant. Clay's not ball dominant. Curry can move the ball. I mean, those two guys need the ball. And there is only one ball. And the other guy, then, if one guy has the ball, then the other superstar's standing around. And that doesn't really work. So, and it's not going to be Luka that's going to go. So just a thought there on the Lakers side of things and the rest of the Western Conference. I think Clippers, Warriors, Lakers, and obviously, Clippers, Warriors, Timberwolves, and obviously OKC. They beat Memphis, but that's going to be a sweep. I mean, not only is Oklahoma City talented, but there's something wrong with Memphis, obviously. We've talked about it a million times. All right, let's move on to let me see, make sure that we don't have any other NBA. Oh, we're still going 70s and 80s women. I don't have a problem with that. Good morning, James. Good to see you. This is amazing. The chat room is amazing this morning. All right, let's go over to the Giants side of things. I'm not crowing about anything. Look at Jordan Hicks. I want him to be successful. But I've told you this since before spring training. I think he's a seventh inning guy. I thought he would have a good first half like he had last year, be a lot of 5 and fly, and then he would tire out, and they'd put him back in the bullpen. But right now, and we're still early in the season, and I understand that. But right now, let me give you this. I think I have this in my stuff today when it comes to, let me see this bait. If I have this bait, I hope I do. I hope I did this. I might not have. Maybe I didn't. Let's just put it this way. Jordan Hicks was really, really good early in the season. Yeah, I didn't put that thing in there. Jordan Hicks was. Let me see if I can, because I want to have this stat for you. So let me look at something real quick. I thought I had posted this, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't move it over. No, I didn't. Anyway, Jordan Hicks had a really good first start, and then since then his ERA is like 8.84, and he's given up a ton of runs. And last night he wasn't good. And he kind of rights the ship at certain times, but he always has that bad inning, and that's kind of what happened last night. His ERA is in the high 6s now, and as I pointed out to you before, as far as the starting rotation, if you believe that what's going on with the Giants is realistic and sustainable, it's got to be about starting pitching. The relievers have got to be great. I told you I'm not a big Lou Trevino fan. I like that he has bounced back, but he was bad last night. I get nervous with him. Outside of him, Bivens has been solid, but Bivens makes me a little bit nervous. Everybody else in the bullpen is solid, rock solid. I believe not only now, but in the future. Trevino makes me nervous. He pitched after Jordan Hicks last night, and he took a fire and made it into an inferno. It was a fire with Jordan Hicks. It was an inferno by the time Lou Trevino was done with it. And I'm not a Trevino guy. He was good with the A's at times. I like the story. I don't think he's going to stick here very long. Good story that he came back, blah, 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 blah. All right, but as far as the rotation is concerned, if this is sustainable, Logan Webb, we know. Justin Verlander got back on track. Robbie Ray pitched, as he said yesterday, or the day before, that he feels like it's 2021 and he's starting to really get a feel. I believe him. He's pitching better. And I don't think those walks and all those things that have been happening, I think he's going to get those under control. So there's 3 guys in the rotation. Landon Roop has been absolutely positively great his last 2 outings. He had 20 swings and misses 2 outings ago. Last Saturday, he was phenomenal. So he's looking like he's good. So now you got 4 guys in the rotation that you're feeling pretty good about, and you got a good bullpen. That's the recipe for success for the Giants, and then it comes down to timely hitting and defense. I think that they can defend. I think that yesterday there was an error by Patrick Bailey. That's going to happen, but he's a solid catcher. Chapman's solid. Adames has been shaky at short. I think he'll get better. Fitzgerald is a really good athlete at first. Yastrzemski's a glove type in right. Jung-Hoo Lee's solid in center. And Ramos is not bad in left. Good athlete. He's solid in left. So that's a good defense. They should be able to defend behind this pitching staff. But like I said, bullpen last night was standing with Trevino. There's a lot of good arms in that bullpen. They're going to be fine. 4 of the 5 starters are pitching well. And I've talked about Hayden Burnsong a million times. How much longer do we have to watch Jordan Hicks and not put Jordan Hicks in his correct position, which is another arm in the 7th inning, which means you can release Trevino. There's a spot in the bullpen that's open right now. Hicks would be great for it. There's a spot then open in the rotation. Birdsong would be great for it. And if Birdsong doesn't come through, which I think he will, then Harrison is down there. The Carsons are down there. There's a number of guys. So I don't know how long you last. The NL West is really, really tough. The Cubs did the Giants a favor. The Cubs beat the Dodgers 11-10. The Padres are still really good. Arizona's right there. If you don't believe you can win the division, which that's not how the Giants think, but now you're on with a bunch of teams in the wild card. We've had this conversation a million times. You don't have time to wait. It's not Little League. If Hicks isn't getting it done, even for 1 or 2 starts, see what Birdsong is. You don't have time to wait, and Birdsong's a potential star to me. Here is Bob Melvin after the game. I don't love this response, and I love Bob Melvin, but I don't love this response because it's kind of Little League-ish. Let's take a listen.
But the stuff is good. He's just finding periods where he lets it get away from him a little bit. But again, they put some pretty good at bats on him too. I mean, early in the game, especially in the 3rd inning, hitting the ball the other way, not trying to pull him. That's when you hit him on the ground. So I think it's a combination, and they had some good at bats off him.
I wish we didn't have to say nice things about everybody all the time. I mean, Jordan Hicks, outside of the first start of the year, and he has. It always seems like it's 1 inning or 1 batter or 2 batters or just, and then he's good for like 80% of the time. But that counts. Like 2 starts ago when he gave up 5 in the first inning, but then he went 6 innings and he didn't give up anything. The first inning counts. Bob Melvin is saying give the other team credit. Yeah, you have to give the other team credit. But your pitcher's got to be better, and it can't be he paid through, 100 pitches last night. 90 were great. Okay, but 10 pitches he sucked, and that's where the game was decided. In professional sports, most games in the NFL are decided by less than a touchdown or 3 or 4 points. That's 2 plays. If you lose those 2 plays in the NFL, 2 or 3 plays, you lose the game. 1 or 2 bad pitches in a Major League Baseball game, the line is that thin. You lose the game. NBA, 1 or 2 shots down the stretch. Steph hits a miraculous 3, and it takes the air out of the other team. That's game. Like, that's what professional sports is about. It might be a 10-point win, but there was a play that happened that turned the game. Usually that's what it is in professional sports. That's how thin the line is. That's why a really bad team can beat a really good team. They made 1 play. That's what happened. A deep ball, a fumble in the NFL, a bad hanging curveball that's a 3-run shot, game over. Like that is the game. So Jordan Hicks, for a lot of the percentages of these games, is pitching okay or well. But he's got this tendency to where a few pitches per game do him in, and that's the deal. That's professional sports. So I know what Bob Melvin is doing, and I know what the modern day athlete is, and you don't ever really, unless you have to, want to call a guy out. Nobody does. So they give the other team credit or say, really, he's pitching well most of the time, or he is. But you can't give up these runs. You can't give up these big innings. You can't have 2 or 3 yeah, they went the opposite way. They're professional hitters. That's what it is. So to me, look, I'm a bottom line guy. You know this about me. There's a process, and there can be great play calls that didn't work out or whatever. At the end of the day, whatever your ERA is, whatever your win-loss record is, if you're in a team, whatever your quarterback rating is, that's what you're defined by. Not there's an asterisk there. You know that Jordan Hicks threw, 1,000 pitches this year, and like 985 were really good, but he had 15 bad pitches that, he gave up grand slams and 3-run shots, and those count. So I don't care how well you're doing most of the time. It's a thin line, success and failure in sports. And I'm a bottom line person. And the bottom line is this guy's got a high 6 ERA, and you win with pitching, defense, and timely hitting. And you can't have someone in the rotation doing this. Now, if you didn't have other alternatives, you got to grin and bear it and hope the guy in the days that he's not pitching can tweak those few pitches that he's getting beat on. And they look at the film and they say, here's there's a tendency here. There's a this or that, or you let down or whatever the case may be. But it's the major leagues, and they hit bad pitches. They hit them hard many times. They don't miss them like they do in the minors. That's the major difference here is guys down at the minors are like, yeah, they were great. And then they come to the majors, they can't do it. You have a better alternative in Hayden Birdsong. The guy's lights out. The guy's mature. He's ready. And what's the harm in seeing if he's something and saying, Jordan Hicks, who's been a reliever the majority of his career, you're going to be our long guy for a minute. Let's just flip the roles for a second. Let's just see. Because if Birdsong is great or even good, then all of a sudden, right now, as we speak, you have a 5-man rotation that's really good, and that's hard to find in Major League Baseball. You might have 3 good ones. You might even have 4 good ones. Nobody has really 5. Seattle last year did, but you don't really have 5. And Birdsong, right now, Webb is pitching great. Verlander's figuring it out. Robbie Ray's figuring it out. Landon Roop is really, really good. You could have, if you add Birdsong, you could have a 5th. Maybe he falls right on his face. Then Hicks goes back in. It's not going to hurt his confidence. You tell Jordan, look, dude, sorry, bro, but your ERA's in the high 6s. You haven't had a good start since your first one, a complete one, good one since your first one. So let's give this guy a shot. You'll be back. Don't hang your head. We're going to put you in the long roll, and then we're going to see what happens here with Hayden Birdsong. You can't afford to wait. This division's too good. You're dealing with too many teams in the wild card if you're not in the divisional race. You're a good baseball team. You've got an opportunity to add another guy. I know I'm a broken record on this, but man, when you got a guy struggling at this level, and I don't care what Bob says after the game, you're being too nice. I understand the psychology of being a manager. You're not going to come in the postgame show and go, Jesus, this guy can't put a complete outing together. Because in Bob's mind, if you went to him and said, hey, Bob, is it okay if a pitcher in 100 pitches throw 90 good ones but 10 shitty ones? He's going to go, what are you talking about? No. Well, that's what you said in the postgame yesterday. You said for the majority of the time, he's pitching really well, and it's just getting him every once in a while. Well, that's the game. That's the game at the professional level in every professional sport. It's when you make the plays. He gave up that 3-run shot, but outside of that, he lost 3-2. It's part of the deal, and you got to count it. This is kind of funny. So Bob Melvin before the game, this is fun. I don't know if you know this, but the Giants are struggling at first base. I don't know if you know that. So Bryce Eldridge was back. He was at AA with the Richmond Flying Squirrels, and he hit a home run in his first at bat. So Bob was asked about it and if he had seen it. And here's what Bob says. It's pretty funny.
Spot, we're getting pretty good production out of the DH spot right now.
You saw his first at bat today, Eldridge.
What's that?
You saw Bryce's first at bat.
Did he? It's like spring training? Or that was the second at bat?
Base winds up and throws. Eldridge swings and hits it in the air, deep right. Lampy's backing.
All right, we'll get him here now.
There's 2 things that happened there. Number one, when someone said he hit a home run at his first bat, he goes, like spring training? Like, in other words, because I think, didn't he strike out like 8 consecutive times after that home run? So he's kind of taking a dig at the media, like, great, he hit a home run. Do you know that he struck out like 8 times right after that? So he's kind of making a dig right there, and then he's kind of making a joke right there. But he says we're pretty set at DH, which is what Bryce Eldridge is because he's not a really good defensive first baseman right now. But how about you DH him and put Flores at first? I mean, something. I mean, Lamont Wade Jr., you can't keep this up. So anyway, I understand what he's saying about DH, and what he's saying is Wilmer Flores is a pretty good DH. And he probably doesn't want to play him every day at first base. I understand that. And Eldridge is not a good defensive first baseman, and they need to work on things. I'm not suggesting Eldridge off 1 home run comes up. But sooner rather than later, if he can show. Now he's coming back from injury. Now he's at AA, probably at AAA later. Let's see him do it. And he's got to improve his defense. Everybody tells you that about Bryce Eldridge. So it's not like he's coming up soon. And if Lamont Wade Jr. was hitting 300 and had an on-base percentage like he normally does in the 400s and wasn't an automatic out like having a pitcher in your lineup, then that discussion would never even come up. But the fact that they're struggling at that position, that's going to come up. So there you go. Hicks, not good. Bryce Eldridge. I don't know if there's anything I missed, but let me make sure that we've pretty much caught everything, I think. Is Ogden around? Oh, look at Ogden. Look at him right there. You know what I'd like to bring back? Hi, Steve, and I know Ogden's talking about the Truth Machine as well. You know the original Truth Machine I did years and years and years ago before I even got to the Bay Area. And what we used to do, and you really can't do this anymore, but on this show we could do whatever we want now, is that we would actually take the audio from people and then we would edit said audio so that they said different things than what they actually said. Now you can do that with AI now. But back in the day, we would edit actually what they said. So here's the Truth Machine, and we would play what they said, and then we would edit it. We would edit the audio and say this is what they meant. And a lot of times, and we would take it from other places, and so it sounded jumbled and everything, but it was funny as hell. Versus then when we originally did it at 95.7, and I think we did it with, it might have been Mitch Moss or Derek or whatever in Ogden. But then we took that whole thing and we played it like it was a computer, and it was funny. And teams got pissed. They were like, I would get texts from people going, "Hey man, come on, don't do that with, you know." So we wouldn't do it with, certainly, like if we were a flagship of the Niners and we did it with Kyle, like we wouldn't do it with Kyle sometime or whatever. We'd go with other things. But anyway, long story short, but yeah, the original Truth Machine was actually edited audio from the actual person, which now you could do with AI. So it's not even that unique. But people would get pissed on the radio. But we could do it. We could do anything we wanted. We could do AI now on this show and just be like, "Here's what Kyle said. Here's what Kyle meant to say." They probably wouldn't love it, but you know, it'd be a little bit different. Yeah. Well, hey, Ogden, what time is that happening? Todd Husak, Chad Millman. Millman's great with the numbers and who might get drafted where. So make sure you hit up Tommy's show this afternoon right after ours. And do remember, too, that I'm going to do a post-game show after the Warriors. And then when Tommy gets back, when Tolbert gets back to his hotel room, he's going to do another one kind of like after game one. So I did one on game one. And then people were like, "Hey, Tolbert's going to do a post-game show." And then so I got off the air so that Tom could do one in Houston, and that's part of the Bay Area Sports Collective, which you need to make sure you are subscribing to. So make sure you do that. So Tom after the Warriors, Tom this afternoon, he'll be talking because he just absolutely loves. I just got a text from Larry Kruger. Absolutely loves doing the draft stuff. So he'll do that this afternoon on the Bay Area Sports Collective, and then he will do post when he gets back to his hotel room with a couple of beers in Houston. So make sure that you stay tuned for that. What else do we have? I want to make sure. Yeah, he's screwing up my show, man. He texted right in the middle of the show. I'm like, big ding right there. All right, I think we have it. So make sure you subscribe to John Lund Unleashed. That way you'll know not only doing shows now in which we recapped everything, episode 123, John Lynch Speaks. We gave you that video today. Purdy and Kittle updates, we gave you that. Something but nothing. He said a lot, but really said nothing. Depth of the draft we talked about. Trades, I expect them from the 49ers tomorrow, not only amongst trading draft picks, but also 4 players. CMC says he's healthy. Warner says he's excited. The Warriors game 2 we talked about. Adjustments, we explained what that means. Lakers and Timberwolves are tied at 1 apiece. I give you my Western Conference thoughts so far. Jordan Hicks not good. There's Hayden Birdsong waiting in the wings. I was going to do that caboose, but I didn't. We'll have to do it tomorrow because that's that one that's still the guy who set the sex toys on fire. I still haven't found that, but we're going to talk about it tomorrow. Random things we do. Today it was about sex symbols of the 60s and 70s, I think is what the discussion was there. So there you go. And what else? And make sure that you tune in. Look, see, Dom knows more than me on the Bay Area Sports Collective. Paulie and and the Sphere. Oh, very cool. I've been in the Sphere a couple of times. Beautiful. Tony at Bill Graham, the Civic, the Fish Show. Next show is hungover Thursday at 11 a.m. So that Tommy is going to be on talking draft later this afternoon and tonight right after the game. After I'll do the post game. So tune in. I'll do the post game. That's why you got to subscribe to John Lund Unleashed. Alert to when we'll be doing the post game show after the Warriors Rockets game number 2. Bay Area Sports Collective, where you can watch Polly's Particles and the Tolbert Show. Make sure you do that. So make sure you subscribe to both of those channels. Thanks for watching on X today at John Lund Radio. Thanks for watching on Instagram as well, Facebook and LinkedIn. So any of those platforms, but we'd love it if you'd make it over to the YouTube channel, subscribe, get those alerts on. And please, before you go, hit that like button. Did I miss anything else today? I think we're caught up on everything. Tongue Guy. I know we got to update everybody on Tongue Guy. Wow, a Libby reference. That's crazy. That's very inside. All right. That'll do it for a Wednesday edition of the show. We'll be back for the post-game show tonight and then tomorrow, 8 a.m. sharp on a Thursday. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Make sure you're on Bay Area Sports Collective. You watch Tommy later today as well. And I'll talk to you tonight with the Warriors postgame and tomorrow back at 8 a.m. All on John Lund Unleashed. Have a great rest of your hump.
Thanks for hanging out with John Lund Unleashed. We'll try to be better next time, though I wouldn't hold my breath. Please like and subscribe on the John Lund Unleashed Pod YouTube channel. Watch live shows weekdays at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. And make sure to have your alerts on for shows throughout the day or night. All things Lund can be found at johnlundunleashed.com. johnlundunleashed.com.
Goodbye!